asking our four speakers just to give us some ideas of what they think we should be doing moving ahead as a network and as a group that is interested in building future resources for the use of the community. Over to you, Hugue.
Thank you so very much, Bruce, and thanks again to all the participants and panelists. It's always a mixed feeling when we come to this conversation in the preparation, full of good intention to give enough time for interactions and always taken by time and rushing at the end. Yeah, but that is also the reality of it. And the beauty, as you said, Bruce, is that we are starting a conversation. A lot has been said, and plans are in place to ensure that we capture even more from the different participants and beyond, because as participants, you are also affiliated to network we are not aware of, and that you could easily bring on board as we move forward in the conversation and try to expand this rich conversation. I really was interested and captivated throughout, and really thanking at this point also the producers. I was a bit confused at some point because I was really interested by both. And I managed to actually, because I used two devices to to be in the two rooms and to try to get the best out of the two, from the intervention with the film of Kakuma Sound or Meet, where the experience from the Batwa community was shared. All of that were really all interesting, and the experience from the NGOs also really added to the conversation, to the practicalities we want to see, really treated by what Afinov is doing, by what Culturals presented. Really, actually, it seems to be where we want to go, and their effort to really be at the forefront of impact assessment also speaks to the reality of what we want to achieve. Beyond the development of tools, how do you measure the transformation it's bringing in the society? How do you measure the impact? How do you also create space for sharing with others? And that is also the very spirit of the platform we are trying to create, and we hope we get there with your continuous support. As Bruce said, we are wrapping up, and we really want to bring back the four main speakers. That will be Pierre, Sané, Christiana, Afrikaner, Johnston, and Darla, if they can on their cameras. The purpose is really to have some concluding or remark with you, where each and everyone could have a 2 minutes slot to sum up your thoughts on what you think was should be the important step we need to have in mind in following up on this conversation. Yeah, and if I can please ask Pierre Sané to start with that, that would be awesome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, yes. Great.
So all these projects demonstrate the creativity of the NGOs who are working with the communities. And I think the seeds are there to further use art education in the management of social transformation. I think the role of UNESCO here is really to facilitate research policy linkages. Researchers to evaluate those projects, like you have said, in terms of impact, in terms of how they contribute to social transformation in the community, and the policymakers. There's no escape from this. It's governments that have the mission to turn the research findings into policy and to monitor how those policies are actually affecting social change and directing social change so that we move to transformation on the basis of the objectives that have been set up in the African Union to create an Africa where we will live in peace, in prosperity, human rights being respected, and working all together for the transformation of our societies that will allow the inclusion of identities that are rich, that are diverse, and that communicate and work together. So let's make sure we keep in mind all those linkages between researchers and NGOs, linkages between NGOs and governments, in order to move towards co-production of policies between the government, the people, and the research community, so that we will have social change that lead to positive transformation of our societies. But we all need to work together. And I think the second mission maybe that UNESCO should undertake is regional cooperation and exchanges at the level of government, but also at the level of researchers and NGOs. We have to have platforms that bring together the whole East Africa region so that these experiences can be shared by those three groups: policymakers, researchers, NGOs, and artists. The artists also should be the heart of this initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pierre Sané, for these thoughts. Without further ado, I would like to invite Christiana Afrikaner for sharing her thoughts, her remark, and the key takeaway for us to move forward from this conversation. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, sir. What I could observe is that there's inclusion of what was said during the day, that we almost move to the same direction. What I should suggest is that we keep on reaching out to each other. I believe this was a platform created for us so that we can build new links, and so that we can build on these links for a better Africa, as Pierre said. Let's keep on telling stories, not only telling stories, but let's start documenting our stories. We are the ones who should tell our own stories. And let's try to empower ourselves towards identity, the culture identity, the identity culture that we were talking about during the day. Let's build on it. Let's take hands. And then I will recommend UNESCO really to step in so that the artists can get support from the governments, because they are waiting for an upper hand to get involved in what the people are doing on the ground. I thank you.
Thank you very much. If you may allow me to be a bit provoking, because I want to recognize your multiple hats in this conversation, being it from the perspective of your organization, but also from the African Union, where you are actively engaged in a working group dealing with policy strategies in this area. What will be your consideration in terms of linking up our conversation towards that engagement? What could be some concrete suggestion at that point?
I should like, for me, I'm just chairing the working group working on the art education policy. It's not my office. I'm just helping out with drafting the policy. But I should like to see the two organizations working close together. That's what I'm trying after the Paris multi-stakeholder meeting to bring the two together, at least those on the African grounds, so that we can have one piece or one mouth to speak about the upbringing of the arts or the upbringing of Africa, especially as Pierre mentioned, the drafting of the policy. We are still in this stage of, we are almost done with the drafting, but if we don't have people cooperating on implementing the policy, then it really doesn't serve any purpose. So from grounds like this, we can work together so that once the member state adopted the policy, that we can say we will work on this African arts education policy, but then the bodies must come together, I think.
Thank you very much for this. And without further ado, can I call on Johnston for his concluding words and takeaway, including recommendation moving forward? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for bringing me back in. It's been an absolutely fascinating, inspiring day, and seeing all the work which is going on, it really gives me great heart and soul. I do think we've got a massive challenge on our hands, and the challenge is quite simple. We have to be taken seriously. Art for too long has been sitting on the margins of education, sitting on the margins of change making. And I think it also has been too long directed toward the wrong types of systems, like an art market per se. I think art education compels us to look at things differently as opposed to art itself. So we need to start to define what we mean. What is this art education that we're talking about? Is it an art education which is based on craft and skill and based on other European Northern canons, you could say, of value? Or is it an art education which is based on change making, based on tapping into those senses which we know are really, really important to engage with? And I think that art does tap into our nervous system. There's no question about that. And it taps in, it moves us, and it does things to us. And sometimes it brings us in the wrong direction, hence toward the art market. And other times when we add that word education to it, it brings us, in my view, in the right direction. But we need to start to be clear about what is this art education. And if we're going to talk about art education as something which is about social change, about transformation, then we are talking about issues-based art education. We are not talking about the traditional form of art education. I'm going to be quite vociferous about saying that. So we need to underline that. And we need to show examples of what this can be. And if we do come to a clear definition of what it is, then we've got to look at who actually teaches this. Who are the people who are going to bring this forward into society and into communities? And that means we have to again look at teacher education. We have to look at how people are trained and what their views and values are on art. I mean, we need to really examine the curriculum as it is presented to the world and on the values which underpin that curriculum and challenge these. I'm going to finish by saying I really think I'm always aware and concerned maybe a little bit too much about policy and having to try and prove the impact of art. Art is soft power. And I think for too long, we've had an emphasis on hard power, on hard knowledge, hard evidence. I think the knowledge and the evidence which comes from art is soft, and it is extremely beautiful and meaningful. I think we should address that, and we should accept that, and we shouldn't have to go around with questionnaires to try and find out whether something had an impact or not. We can see it, we can feel it, and we can hear it. And the last thing I'm going to say is that I don't think there's any great systems of education. There's no great policies. There are only great teachers. And on that, I think we have to really move forward and say we need to make great teachers. We need to make great educators, and not so much great artists, but great artist educators, people who really understand the potentiality of the art to tap into our nervous system and to move mountains when need be. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for the insightful recommendation to better tap into the soft power of arts, to not necessarily run away from the policies, but really investing in the arts, art practitioner, arts educators, to continuously touch the mind. I like that approach where art really speaks to the mind, and that's also where we have the assurance to ensure the social transformation, the capacity to be open-mindedness, the capacity to be empathetical to the others, for living together, that we want to achieve through our thanks for your beautiful and insightful recommendation. May I now turn to Darla, and ask her to share also her thoughts, conclusions, although this was already captured in your concluding statement in your presentation. Darla, over to you.
Thank you, Hugue. I am so inspired by all of you and the speakers who have shared today, and I'm so grateful to the organizers for bringing us all together for this platform. I think we have much to learn from each other. Today has illustrated that. And I'm super excited about the creation of the toolkit that is being put forward. I think there's going to be a lot that we can continue to do together there. And I think for me, the overarching theme or thread that I've heard running through today's discussions is the power of human connection through art. And that, in the end, is what is needed now more than ever in our world, is around the human connection to each other, to bridge those divides. And I'm reminded by a quote from Martin Luther King Jr., when he said that we must learn. It's not an option, and it doesn't happen. We must learn to live together as brothers, as family, or perish together as fools. We are all in this together. We have to learn to live together. And the work that we've heard about today is one step in that direction. Thank you again so much to all of you are doing.
Thank you so very much. Yeah, there's no way to conclude a session like the one we had today, for sure. It's a conversation we are starting. It's a conversation that fit into what has been presented at the beginning of the workshop, the UNESCO Framework on Culture and Art Education. We receive enormous indication of what it takes to make it right. We receive enough input vis-a-vis the tools, vis-a-vis the approaches, vis-a-vis some of the practices happening here and there, and that are all fantastic. We also got some clear challenges vis-a-vis how do we come together to better share the good practices? How do we create more spaces like this? How do we make sure more stakeholders beyond those around this conversation are involved to learn from each other, to nurture each other, to engage more in the conversation and in the impact we want to see at the ground, at the community. There was also some clear caution from the movies we saw, from the short documentary or films, vis-a-vis the dangers of stereotyping, vis-a-vis the danger of single narrative when you speak about identity building. And all of it is what we also want to take into account in moving forward in this conversation. And I will want now maybe to throw it back to Bruce, if you want to come in to say some few words before we conclude. I have the feeling that we engage in a journey that is opening a path that we need to digest from the conversation we have had to see some of the best things we need to move forward with, including some of the clear recommendations from Pierre in terms of how to create some of these spaces moving forward to engage the academia with the policymaker, with the artists, with the educators, and everyone that matters for this conversation to be right. And beyond just conversation, rhetoric, or theories, how do we move it down at the community where the impact should be felt? So, Bruce? do you want to come in, please?
Thank you, Hugue. Yeah, we gave ourselves a difficult, almost impossible job to to sum up after such wonderful concluding remarks by our speakers and contributors. I suppose the only thing for me to leave us with is that we really ask for your continued participation. Please go and provide as much information about your methods and practices as you can by visiting the website and contribute now button, as I think has been shared a few times. The more information we have, the more we can feature your work in that report that we will send back out to the network. And as Hugue has mentioned, we, I think, look forward to beginning to understand how to build resources either on the website, including the practitioners toolkit, and hopefully to organize something in the network in the near future. So thank you to everybody that has given up all of their time today to come to this stimulating and fascinating workshop. I think that's everything that we need to say. Thank you so much, everybody. Hugue, I think we're good.
Yes, we are good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.